Tonight we continue our pre-election interviews by turning our attention once again to the race for Suffolk County District Attorney. We'd like to welcome back one of the candidates running in the Democratic primary on September 4th, Linda Champion. Thank you very much for being with us, Linda.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
I want to start by having you talk about your background and why it makes you the best candidate to be the next DA.
So for me, I think based on my background, I'm the only candidate in this particular race that has the management skills, the prosecutorial skills, the trial experience and skills, and I've worked in the community for the past 15 years helping families with their day-to-day basic needs and those families that are in crisis. I'm the only candidate I feel that understands that jobs, housing, and education are essential to crime prevention. And I've worked in all three of those core areas, working as an adjunct professor for 12 years at Suffolk University, also working as an adjunct professor at Northeastern University. I've created jobs through building businesses in the city of Boston, and also working with small and local business owners to help them create their companies and hire and retain employees. With my work at Urban Edge, I spend a lot of time in the community helping families in need of services, particularly housing, families who are low income to home ownership, Section 8 to home ownership, even homelessness to home ownership. And if people don't understand all the areas that are impacting crime and how to prevent crime, then I think that what you're going to find is the same results that we have now.
Well, the things that I think concern many of our viewers are about violent crime, above all, probably. And there are other candidates who've worked with people who've been involved with that, either as victims or as perpetrators, as prosecutors or as defense attorneys. How would you counter that?
So one of the things you need in order to combat violent crime, and one of the conditions that we're facing right now in the city of Boston, is that if you have offenses that are going unsolved, so for example, murders, Boston has a high number of unsolved murders, and the question then is, how do you get witnesses and victims to come forward to give you the information that you need to sort of work on one of those issues? It does two things. If you can get the victims and witnesses to come forward to give you the information that you need in order to solve a shooting, right? Then that means that we have to first establish and rebuild the trust within the community, and that victims and witnesses feel safe enough to come forward in the same way that someone undocumented would feel safe enough to come forward with information or to report a crime without fear of retaliation, without fear of deportation, and without fear that all we care about is getting the information from them, but not caring about making sure that they're protected and safe.
Well, starting on the people working on cases in the DA's office, how would you change the level of trust?
So one of the things I would do to change the level of trust is, I don't like the way the system is currently set up. Now a class enters, they go into a one-week training program, and then they're dispersed throughout the county to hit the ground running. One, it's simply not enough training. The other issue is 96% of the cases are prosecuted and handled out of the district court, which leaves the superior court cases, which are the more violent and serious offenses, sort of like this ivory tower. And so all the prosecutors in district court are trying to work hard to secure a spot in superior court, when I think it should be the opposite. I think that every assistant district attorney should be trained at the superior court level. And at that level, they should trickle back down and rotate in and out of district court and superior court. One, it keeps your skills fresh as a trial attorney. But two, it also gives you a better understanding of the overall system. Oftentimes, someone is delayed in court, for example, on a pretrial matter, and they're waiting to see whether or not the grand jury will indict. But you have a younger prosecutor standing in district court answering on someone who doesn't understand the evidence, who doesn't understand where the grand jury is in the indictment process, and who doesn't understand when this individual will have a date certain as to whether or not the case will be sent forward to superior court or whether or not that case will remain in the district court. If you take a system where you can make sure that everyone is trained in the same way, and has a full understanding of the process, both at the superior court level and the district court level, that's going to make fundamental changes. The other thing we have to do is get rid of the petty offenses so that I can deploy those litigators, those assistant district attorneys, back into the communities that they serve to truly be public servants, to be visible, to be a constant, consistent presence in the lives of the residents of this community, so that they're never seeing them for the first time walking into court walking into a courtroom. If they see them for the first time walking into a courtroom, we're all losers at that point. Everyone is lost. There are no winners when you come into court. And so my job is to make sure that I can get the office up and running and trained with one goal in mind: get me out of business. And the only way you can get me out of business is if we have crime reduction.
This is BNN News. We're talking with Linda Champion, candidate for Suffolk County District Attorney. Linda, I imagine the other reason a lot of people who see something going on around a violent crime don't want to talk is they're afraid of reprisals from the street. I know there's supposed to be something to prevent that from happening, but what else do you think you could do?
It's not only making sure there's something there to prevent it, we have to be in a position to relocate witnesses. We also have to be in a position to relocate returning citizens. The likelihood of someone, for example, who is involved in a gang, going in, serving time, and coming out and being able to live a normal life is slim to none. They cannot come back oftentimes into the community that they were in prior to being incarcerated. And if a child is in a gang, for example, but they want to get out of a gang, there's no way out for them if they're still in the same community that the other members are living in. So we have to be prepared to provide resources and opportunities for people who want a second chance, who want a better way of life, to help navigate them on a course so that they can be successful.
Another controversy in the race so far is there is an organization called the Black Collective, and it involves people such as former State Senator Diane Wilkerson and former State Rep all from Dorchester. And I want to ask, they say we need to get behind one person of color to help the community, and at the same time, there are two people of color who don't want to answer their questionnaires, and you're one of them. So why is that?
So, I mean, I think that it's okay for people to say that we'd like to rally and put forth the best candidate in a race like this to be the next district attorney. I think the Suffolk County and the residents of Suffolk County should be seeking the best candidate for this position. This is a position that has the ability to do one thing that no other politician can do. You can detain people and you can incarcerate people. And we have to make sure that the district attorney's role is about something more. Right? It's about putting in place a leader who can be innovative in their approach to this public service job, be fair and just, but also make sure that they help victims and witnesses on a pathway to being survivors. So how can we do that? We can do it with a collective effort. Everyone sitting down, talking, hashing out ideas, putting forth opportunities or options. For me, that's not how the process went. I was the last one to announce my candidacy in April, but I was the first one on the ballot on April 21st or so. I think I got all the signatures necessary. So I was the first Democratic candidate who officially announced that I was on the ballot. At that time, no one came to me about any sort of collective efforts. Instead, I think what they did is they worked quietly and secretly behind the scenes to tarnish my reputation or to spread different rumors. And so when you engage in those kinds of activities, then that, to me, isn't an activity that says collaboration, helping the community. I think that does the opposite. What it suggests to me is, tactics that are, quite frankly, dirty politics. And so that's the type of environment that I'm trying to get away from. We're trying to move forward to bring new opportunities to the residents of Suffolk County, to get rid of an entrenched, corrupt political system that exists here where one candidate is anointed and all other candidates have to stand down. We have to take this position and return it to the residents of Suffolk County where it belongs, because endorsements do not do time. Corporations do not do time. A corporation and an endorsement isn't the person sitting in the pizza shop with a bullet grazing the side of their head. These are people. So the most important resource that I have in Suffolk County is the lives of the residents here. And those lives are priceless. They can't be bought, they can't be sold, they can't be bartered. And so what we have to do is make sure that the process, the democratic process, is open and fair. So while I'm all for a collaboration, what I'm not for is backdoor politics.
Now, one of the things in the questionnaire from this group, I understand, was about your fundraising. And I know some of that's public anyhow, but do you think they crossed the line?
I think that the collaborative had already selected their candidate. And they probably selected that candidate long before I even made a decision to come into this race. And so what they did is they stacked the odds against you with respect to what is required of you in order to obtain the endorsement. And so what is your fundraising? How many endorsements do you have? How many sponsors and supporters you have? But there are people who announce their sponsors and supporters and say things like, all of the candidates met with this senator and they endorsed me. But it's simply not true. A lot of these people or individuals, some of the candidates have never met with, have never been interviewed by. So with this particular job, it's more important than ever that it be transparent and that the person who assumes the role is honest and trustworthy.
I have to ask you, I mean, there is a possibility that someone's going to win this election, and some people in Boston are going to be very unhappy with that person, and they're going to meet you someday and they say, it's your fault. So what would you reply to them?
No, it's not my fault. Trump's in office. You know how he got into office? Because 50% of the people sat on their couches and didn't go out and vote. So if you want to see your candidate of choice get elected, then it's your responsibility to get the vote out and to knock on every door and to make sure everyone gets to the polls and advances the interests of your candidate. What it's not your job to do is try to force or use bully tactics to get people out of the race who have a fundamental right to run for this seat.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Chris.
Linda Champion, candidate for Suffolk County District Attorney.